Hi, and welcome back to Grade 8 Math. This is Section 2, Lesson 1, and the third video for this lesson. This is Ms. Clemens-Brenton, and in this video, we will critique various data representations. Example 1. The graphs below show the amount of change Michael collected in their piggy bank during 2 different years. Both graphs show the same information. Which graph is misleading and why? Well, the message conveyed by each graph is quite different. In looking at the first graph, I can see that the scale begins at 0 and increases in increments of 20. When I look at the second graph, I can see that the scale has been truncated, which means the graph does not start at 0. As well, in this case, the scale goes up in increments of 10. So, looking at these two graphs, I would determine that the second graph is misleading because it doesn't start at 0 and the scale is smaller. When the graph is manipulated in this way, it makes it seem as if the savings in 2021 was more than double the savings in 2020, when in actual fact it wasn't. It was only about $35 more. So the first graph would be an accurate representation, whereas the second graph distorts the information. Example 2. A survey was completed to determine where students wanted to go on their field trip. The graphs display the results of the survey. When I look at the first graph, I can see that the scale starts at 0 but increases in increments of 20. When I look at the second graph, I can see that the scale has been truncated, meaning it doesn't start at 0, and increases in increments of 2. So what impression does each graph give? Well, the first graph makes it appear as if there was very little difference between categories. Each bar is actually less than 20, so it compresses all the information in that tiny space. All the additional numbers in that scale, so when it goes beyond 40, 60, 80, 100, those are actually irrelevant. Those aren't used at all. There is no bar, there is no data that goes above 20. The second graph makes it look like the trampoline park was way ahead of the other groups, so they don't look as close as the first graph. We can see that the movie category actually appears much less than the other two. How is each graph misleading? Well, though it started at 0, the first graph used a large scale so that the differences look very small. Because they compress those bars in that tiny space, it doesn't look like there's much difference between the bars at all. The second graph didn't start at 0, making the differences seem much bigger than they actually were. Who do you think created each graph and why? Well, the first graph was likely created by someone who didn't want it to seem like the trampoline park was the favorite, or maybe someone who chose a different activity. The second graph was likely created by someone who chose the trampoline park, or who definitely didn't want to attend a movie, so they were trying to make the movie category look extremely small, like nobody really chose it. How could the graphs be changed so that the data is displayed accurately? Well, in the first graph, I would definitely choose a smaller scale. The scale started at 0, so that's a positive thing. However, all the numbers above 20 are irrelevant to the data. There is no bar that goes beyond that, so they really didn't need to use a scale that large. The second graph should start at 0. The scale is fine, the numbers only go up to 20 anyway, but they've omitted all the information below 10, so it makes the movie category look extremely small. Laser tag looks 4 times as big as the movie category, and the trampoline park looks 5 times as big, when in actual fact, there were 12 students who chose a movie and 18 who chose laser, so that's only 6 students more, and 20 who chose the trampoline park, so that's only 8 more than the students who chose the movie. Example 3. Sam has a large empty fish tank. He wants to give it to the friend who he believes needs it the most. One friend created a graph to help Sam make his decision. Using the graph, Sam decided that he would give the tank to Tristan. Why do you think he made this decision? Did he make the best choice? Explain. Well, when I look at this graph, the first thing that I notice is that the fish in Tristan's category are extremely large. So I would think that he believed Tristan had the most fish and needed the tank since the size of the fish are much bigger. He actually should have given the tank to Leo, since Leo has 12 fish, so he would likely need more room. Tristan actually only has 6 fish. Who do you think created this graph and why? Well, I think it's highly likely that Tristan created the graph. He wanted the tank and tried to give the impression that he had the most fish. So by drawing the fish much bigger than the fish in the other categories, it makes it seem he has more. If the graph is misleading, what could you do to correct it? Well, all fish should be made the same size. When we're using symbols to represent information, the symbol size should be kept consistent. At this time, you should now complete the activities for this lesson.